Welcome to Monarchist Minute. I'm your host, William Staut, here with Vice Chancellor Clements Magnolia. How are you, Clements?
I'm doing all right.
Good, good. So what's all been going on with you as of late?
Not much, really. Just getting ready for us to go to DC.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, we are reprising our visitation of the DC March for Life. If you're going to the March for Life, we hope to see you there. Come
Yes,
and
we do.
find us.
He'll be able to find us. We're gonna have our banner again, and this time we're actually gonna have enough poles that we can actually wave our flags around.
Mm-hmm. And we've doubled the size of our delegation this year.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
We're kind of waiting for Actually, hold on. Let me check my email. Reminds me. Please tell me she got back to me. Oh, okay. She just said, "Please be well dressed."
That is even less helpful, if I'm being honest. I mean, well dressed
Okay, let's just we have a suit, so I just.
As a Midwesterner, well dressed can mean anything from dark jeans and flannel to a polo shirt and khakis.
Just be fancy or something. I don't know. So for anyone who's wondering what we're talking about, I won a free tour of the U.S. Capitol building and lunch with my representative, Greg Murphy, and we're all going to be going to that. So yeah. My guess is that she's saying, "Don't look like you're a pleb."
All right,
I'll
send you a couple outfit options because considering we want to make a day out of it, I'm not gonna want to dress around in a suit and tie the entire day we're walking around the National Mall.
I know, yeah.
But I'll shoot you a couple outfit options and tell me what you think, okay?
We'll talk about this later.
Yeah. Anywho, so yeah, we hope to see you in DC. But first, I heard you heard some interesting things about the Korean president or the South Korean president.
Oh yeah, so somebody translated one of the guys I follow on X actually was able to translate the speech, that the press statement that President Yoon, or former President Yoon now, gave to his country about this was after he declared martial law. He was basically explaining, this is why I declared martial law. And do you want me to read it?
Go ahead.
And stop me at any point when you want us to talk about it, because it's kind of long. Esteemed citizens, I stand here today to express my position on the matter of martial law. The opposition party is wildly playing with fire, claiming that declaring martial law is an act of insurrection. Is that really the case? Who, then, is causing the paralysis of national affairs and constitutional disorder in South Korea today? For the past 2.5 years, the major opposition party has refused to recognize the presidential election, and who was elected by the people, has not ceased their efforts to remove me through constant calls for resignation and impeachment. They have not accepted the results of the presidential election. Since the election, they have held an astonishing 178 rallies for my resignation and impeachment from the very beginning of my term. They have pushed for the impeachment of dozens of government officials since the inception of this administration, paralyzing the presidential governance. Even if impeached, officials are innocent. They are suspended from their duties from the moment of indictment until the final verdict. Many officials resigned before being indicted or impeached. This rampant misuse of impeachment has paralyzed national affairs. They have even impeached the chairman of the Board of Audit and Inspection, prosecutors who investigated their misconduct, and have intimidated judges, all to cover up their own corruption, effectively undermining the order of public service and the rule of law. Moreover, they have submitted unconstitutional special counsel bills 27 times, engaging in political propaganda. They are now pushing for self-protective legislation where criminals can grant themselves immunity. The National Assembly, dominated by the major opposition, the Democratic Party, has become a monster that destroys rather than upholds the foundation of liberal democracy. If this isn't a national crisis and paralysis, what is? And that's not all. The major opposition is now threatening national security and public safety. For instance, last June, 3 Chinese nationals were caught filming a U.S. aircraft carrier docked in Busan with a drone. Their smartphones and laptops contained photos of South Korean military facilities taken over at least 2 years. Last month, a Chinese man in his 40s was arrested for filming the National Intelligence Service, I'm going to refer to them as NIS from now on because of how many times it's mentioned, with a drone right after entering from China. However, current laws do not allow for the punishment of espionage by foreigners under espionage laws. Attempts to amend these laws have been blocked by the opposition. The Democratic Party have not only stripped the NIS of its counter-espionage investigation rights, but also tried to abolish the National Security Act when they had a trifecta. Are they saying we should not catch spies who threaten our national security? Despite North Korea's illegal nuclear arming, missile provocations, GPS jammings, and trash balloon incidents, the opposition has sided with North Korea, criticizing the government's efforts to respond. They argue for lifting UN sanctions against North Korea's illegal nuclear development. What kind of political party at a National Assembly are they? They've cut the special activity budgets for prosecutors and police to zero for the coming year, which are essential for investigating financial frauds, crimes against vulnerable groups, drug-related crimes, and counter-espionage activities. They've also significantly reduced budgets for dealing with drug and deepfake crimes. These actions go beyond obstructing investigations against themselves. They're hindering investigations into public welfare crimes like drug and gang activities. Do they want to turn South Korea into a haven for spies, drugs, and gangsters? Aren't these people the anti-national forces aiming to ruin the country?
For a second, I thought you said drug and gay activities. Wait, what?
We can put them together.
What?
No, gangsters.
Yeah, for a second I thought you said drug and gay activities. Like, I mean, I wouldn't put it past an East Asian to be openly homophobic like that, but I was not expecting it.
Alright. And yet, they've increased the budget for their own paycheck. The economy is in a state of emergency too. The opposition is trying to extinguish South Korea's growth engines. Looking at the budget cuts by the Democratic Party for next year, it's clear. They've cut support for growing the nuclear energy ecosystem, slashed 90% of the budget for supporting nuclear exports to the Czech Republic, and almost completely eliminated funding for next year's nuclear development. They've also significantly reduced budgets for basic science, quantum semiconductors, and biotech industries, which are our future growth engines. Funds for offshore gas exploration in the EC, known as the, quote, King Whale Project, were virtually eliminated. Even youth job support, child asset formation for vulnerable groups, and child care allowances were touched. They've cut funds for innovation growth funds to foster industrial ecosystems, support for medium and small businesses, disaster contingency funds by $1 trillion, which is roughly $1 billion US. $1 billion to disaster fund? What? Okay, I'm sorry, that's not even from his speech. I'm like, what? Okay, and budgets for vaccine and related research and development for pandemics. Now, South Korea is in a situation where national affairs are paralyzed. Social order is disturbed due to the opposition's parliamentary dictatorship and tyranny, making normal administration and judicial functions impossible. Citizens, much of this might be known to you. However, there are even more severe issues that I couldn't reveal until now, leading to my decision on martial law. I have not read anywhere past this, so this is all going to be new for me. So, okay. Last year, actually, no, I did read the part, never mind. Last year, there were hacking attacks from North Korea on constitutional bodies, including the National Election Commission, or NEC. And government agencies. The NIS found these and aimed to check for information leaks and security and system security. All agencies agreed to have the NIS inspect their systems under their surveillance except the Election Commission, which staunchly refused, citing its status as a constitutional body. When a massive irregularity in hiring at the Election Commission was exposed, they reluctantly agreed to an inspection, but only allowed a minor portion of their system to be checked. Even that partial inspection revealed a severe security situation. When an NIS agent attempted hacking, data manipulation was easily possible due to virtually non-existent firewalls and simplistic passwords like, quote, I'm not joking, by the way, when I say this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So if he's telling us the truth, that means that the board that is in charge of elections in South Korea, some of the passwords to their systems is just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is exceedingly dangerous. Like, that's beyond words dangerous. The company managing, back to what the president said, the company managing system security was small and lacked expertise. As president, I was shocked by these findings. How can citizens trust election results when the very system managing democracy's core is so flawed? The National Election Commission, despite observing the security check, only repeated that they had not tampered with data. The National Election Commission, being a constitutional body with judicial officers as members, cannot be subjected to forced searches or investigations without warrants. Without their cooperation, uncovering the truth is impossible. Before the 2024 April National Assembly general election, we demanded improvements, but whether these were adequately addressed remains unknown. Hence, I instructed the defense minister to check the National Election Commission system. When the opposition declared intentions to impeach the head of the Central District Prosecution's Office and the Inspector General investigating their corruption, I realized I could no longer just watch. I felt something had to be done. They would soon target the judiciary with impeachment. Thus, I considered declaring martial law. Although the opposition has repeatedly abused their constitutional powers, I decided to act within the constitutional framework of presidential authority, viewing the current state of national paralysis as a collapse of administrative and judicial functions due to social disorder. The aim was to warn the nation about the opposition's anti-national malfeasance, preventing the collapse of our liberal democratic constitutional order and normalized state functions. After the lifting of martial law on the 4th of December, when the Democratic Party briefly held off on impeachment, I thought the brief martial law had some effect. However, 2 days later, they went ahead with the impeachment anyway, undermining the justification for martial law. I initially told the defense minister that this would not be like past martial laws, but a symbolic emergency measure to alert citizens to the current crisis, deploying minimal troops for order maintenance, unarmed, with immediate withdrawal upon Parliament's decision to lift martial law. When Parliament voted to end martial law, I ordered an immediate withdrawal from the defense ministry. My emergency measure as president was not to destroy South Korea's constitutional order, but to inform citizens of the crisis and to protect and restore it. Deploying a small number of troops to the National Assembly was symbolic to maintain order amidst the expected massive influx of people and parliamentary members after the martial law announcement, not to disband or paralyze Parliament. Controlling a vast parliamentary space with under 300 armed troops for any significant period of time is impractical. Declaring traditional martial law would require tens of thousands of soldiers and extensive prior planning, but I instructed troop movement only after broadcasting the declaration. The troop deployment lasted roughly 1 to 2 hours. If the intention was to paralyze the National Assembly and disband it, I would have chosen a weekend, cut off the utilities, restricted broadcasts, which I did not. This emergency measure was unavoidable to restore and defend the liberal democratic constitutional order, ensuring no casualties by deploying only elite non-commissioned officers. I discussed this with the defense minister before announcing it to some cabinet members just before the state council meeting, where there were many concerns from different departmental perspectives. I explained to it as an inevitable measure given the situation. The troops followed my orders post-announcement, hence, no fault lies with them. I ensured MPs and staff could enter freely, allowing normal legislative activities, including the vote to end martial law. Yet the opposition fabricates lies to prosecute me for insurrection, to impeach me as their party leader faces imminent conviction. Okay, I'm breaking off from his speech. This is actually true, by the way. He's on trial for about 11 different charges of corruption, all of which it seems almost inevitable he will be found guilty of.
What is going on with South Korea that everyone's being convicted of corruption simultaneously?
This is democracy, my friend. They've just reached the final. They've just reached the reality of it. Okay, back to his speech.
It seems that in the Korea, corruption seems to be a repeating theme in their governments, even going back to
it's very often found in Confucian systems, I've noticed. Like, nothing against Confucianism, but it seems very often found in the Confucian systems. Okay, back to his speech. To impeach me as their party leader faces imminent conviction, aiming for an early snap election to escape justice and seize control. Which is true, because if that guy becomes the president, all of his cases will be immediately thrown out.
Come to think of it, I don't think we could say much considering who our current president-elect is, but...
You really want to get into this with me?
I mean, I'm just saying...
Dude, almost everything has been thrown out. All the cases have been dealt with.
I know that's exactly my point.
This is not the same because it's not like Trump was found guilty on a multitude of charges. Almost everything was thrown out, and everything else was dealt with in civil cases. And the cases that did eventually put something out were basically like, yeah, you whatever. Whereas in this case, it's a whole lot different. This case, it's actually corruption, genuine corruption, which they are being found guilty of, and the opposition party is literally using their power to prevent the government from investigating them by impeaching their officers, throwing them out to keep themselves from being found guilty of corruption, and as he has stated, allowing espionage in their own country.
All right.
I'm sorry, this is just you can't compare these two. This is not comparable. Okay, back to it. This is the real constitutional disorder. I will face any impeachment or investigation head on. I've always stated that I won't evade legal or political responsibility for this martial law declaration. Since taking office, I've never cared about personal popularity, my term, or retaining my position. If I had, I wouldn't have fought these forces of constitutional disruption or declared martial law. I couldn't ignore the will of the people who elected me, standing against parliamentary tyranny by the opposition, busy with legislative abuses and only concerned with self-protection. How can enforcing martial law, a constitutional act of government, be considered an insurrection? The declaration of martial law by a president is an act of governance, not subject to judicial review, similar to granting amnesty or exercising diplomatic powers. Citizens, the opposition is trying to oust me by branding me a criminal. What would happen if such anti-national forces were to govern? Unconstitutional laws, self-exonerating laws, and economical ruinous laws would pass through the National Assembly, destroying this country. Our future growth industries like nuclear and semiconductors would collapse, with Chinese solar installations ravaging our forests. Our security and economic foundation, the Republic of Korea-U.S. alliance, and Republic of Korea-Japan cooperation would again crumble. North Korea would further develop its nuclear and missile capabilities, severely threatening our lives. What would become of South Korea's future? It would become a country where spies, drugs, and gangs run rampant. We must prevent at all costs this group that has led to national paralysis and constitutional disorder from taking control. I will fight to the end. Citizens, in this emergency situation of national paralysis, I used my legal authority as president to declare martial law to protect the country and normalize governance. This was a high political judgment, controllable only by Parliament's decision to end it, aligning with judicial proceedings and majority constitutional scholars' opinions. I immediately complied with the National Assembly's demand to lift martial law. There are differing views on the conditions for declaring martial law, but seeing an emergency measure to save the nation as rebellion, as many legal scholars argue, seriously endangers our constitutional and legal system. I ask, what have those who are now wildly swinging their swords, abusing power, have been doing while the nation declined into the state? Did they not think our situation was precarious and in crisis? I urge public officials to remain steadfast in protecting public safety and livelihood amidst this grave security and global economic crisis. Citizens, for the last 2.5 years, I have focused solely on the people, fighting against injustice, corruption, and tyranny disguised as democracy, to protect and rebuild liberal democracy. I earnestly appeal for unity in this effort to safeguard our democracy earned with blood and sweat. I will fight until the very end alongside you. I apologize once again for any shock or anxiety caused by the short period of martial law. Please believe in my fervent loyalty to you. Thank you.
So, where do you think South Korea will go from here?
It seems very likely that the guy who is currently on trial for 11 counts of corruption will become president.
And so, things are going to get really, really bad in
Yes,
Korea.
because it seems very likely that if he comes into power, as he stated, his party will very likely try to break up the cooperation that the U.S. has with, or not, maybe not break it up, but sour relations, as it's already been very obvious that Trump does not like Lee Jae-myung, who is the guy who would very likely become the next president. And yeah.
Well, time for more regime change in Korea.
I don't think it's going to work
Time
this
for
time.
the CIA to do what it does best and funnel weapons and funding into certain groups that can handle this sort of situation.
Yeah.
So basically, what I'm understanding is the former president committed the political equivalent of seppuku to try and raise the alarm bell about
What
his
was happening,
actions.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's at least from what he has been saying. So I mean, we should take this with at least some grain of salt on
Right,
this, since
unreliable
he
narrator.
could. Yeah, but it seems that although he's not being completely honest with us, because it's democracy, what politician would ever would be, it seems likely that he is being more honest, because at this point he doesn't really have anything left to lose.
Mm-hmm. But he always has more to lose.
Yeah, but he already kind of knows what's going to happen, so he might as well just put everything out there. Especially since now he has just been arrested and thrown in prison.
But earlier you said you noticed this is a big issue with the Confucian system, and I wonder if you want to talk about the Confucian system a little bit, because I actually, a little bit ago, I went on a whole Confucian episode, and I tried to learn a little bit more about the Confucian system and beliefs. And it's interesting because it kind of relates to Hobbes' Leviathan, but it manifested independently of it, so to say. Basically, the idea is it kind of is a caste system, but the castes are interdependent. So while some castes are meant to be wealthier and more important than others, each one of them is equal.
Yeah.
It's weird, complicated. But I think, as you said, it seems to be a big problem in the corruption seems to be a big problem with the Confucian system. And I think that might be because, since it is a caste system, it creates a certain sense of entitlement. Any comment, or?
No, no, yeah, that makes sense to me, honestly. Yeah, the whole caste system, which had been prevalent, still has, some echoing sway over life, which is kind of an inevitability in a lot of systems. But yeah,
Hmm. It's strange we don't see more of that out of Japan, though. I think
I think the
the
reason for that is because of how, because in the Koreas and China, it was more of a gradual shift, possibly you could say, because most of that system was never truly ridden of. Whereas in Japan, they basically completely upended that with the destruction of the samurai daimyo, with the samurai, with the complete destruction of the bakufu and
well,
the with the son of joy, and really just we saw how the the movement overtook the old shogunate system and replaced it, as well as the Taisho era pro-democracy sympathies and their attempts to democratize the country. And even we saw how Emperor Hirohito was very much someone who he never wanted to intervene. He believed he was a constitutional monarch and it was not his job to intervene. And so very much we had in Japan those monarchs. If they had those monarchs. They had monarchy, for heaven's sakes. That's why it worked, because they had the monarchs who were able to keep them on the proper road to reform. Whereas in China, they never had that, because all the monarchs, when the monarch actually was trying to enact reform, his aunt proceeds to kick him out because all the Confucian bureaucrats didn't like the change. All the bureaucrats didn't like it, and it was the
well,
same thing in Korea, where they actually did attempt to reform. The Confucian bureaucrats again came back, and then of course the Japanese invasion, and we all know how everything went from there.
well, I would say that in part Japan was also never truly fully Confucian,
That
and
is true, yeah. But they were still
partly
very much, their system was very much influenced. Oh yeah, you're correct, but they're still somewhat at least influenced by the Confucian ideas.
I would say that Japan was the exception between China and Korea because Confucianism, despite what one would think, is actually not a very aristocratic system. It's a very plutocratic.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I know, yeah.
Whereas with the Bushi and the samurai, they were very aristocratic, very family and blood oriented. So I think the difference between China and Korea and why Japan is so different is that why China with the Confucian system was much more plutocratic and therefore more prone to competition and the middle classes being able to interfere more.
Mm,
Since the
that's true.
Japanese had that more structured aristocratic feudal system, and while it did have the tendency to explode into a warlord era, this sense of aristocracy and feudalism helped keep corruption in check because there's this deep
Mm.
sense of
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
honor
I
and
think about that. Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
more of a
whereas of course in a lot in those Confucian systems, they would very often, castrate they would, they make eunuchs out
right.
of a lot of them, and that the eunuchs were exceedingly corrupt throughout their entire time. So,
I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I mean, the idea behind making a eunuch is that they wouldn't be corrupt because they wouldn't have a family to look out for. But it ended up doing the exact opposite because it's like, hey, I have no family. I can never have family. I have nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we could talk. I'm actually watching a very interesting anime that goes into depths about Chinese court politics. It's called The Apothecary Diaries, and it's actually really good and renders Chinese court politics in the medieval era rather well.
Mm.
And to put it as simply as I can, it sucked to work in the Chinese court in like the later Ming or Qing dynasties because everyone was out to get everyone else and everyone was only looking out for themselves.
Yeah.
So, Any other interesting news come out of East Asia as of late?
I don't believe there's anything that I've at least seen coming out of East Asia.
Really, nothing at all?
Well, not that I've seen.
Hmm.
Maybe there is, I just don't know.
I know there's been some interesting things said about Greenland as of late.
Okay, that's not Asia though. We can talk about that though.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So, once again, America seems to want the giant ball of ice. Why? I still do not understand.
It's just something, and there's something enticing about it. You know, it's got that adventurous feel to it. Like we need to conquer something else, and I don't mean like war conquer. I mean we need to have something to strive towards, and that Greenland is that thing.
I've heard several people, most prominent being Mr. Z on YouTube, talk about. Yeah, I know, but allow me to finish.
Oh, I hate that guy.
Talking about how it's an ideal strategic asset for the US full of valuable minerals and resources, and the entire time I'm thinking to myself, it's like, yes, but you gotta get under the glacier to get them.
Yeah.
The only thing he did say that did actually make interesting sense is that it's basically a giant airfield / missile platform, and that will allow us to help expand our anti-nuclear defense capabilities,
Yeah.
which I can agree with. However, there is no reason we can do that now because Denmark's a NATO member, and therefore we can make sufficient treaties and arrangements to put US bases in Greenland as we speak.
Yeah.
So my stance is and remains that as long as Greenland is a protectorate and a colony of Denmark, we should not be trying to forcefully annex it. Now, if Greenland were to become independent,
Which it seems very likely because I think the prime minister stated that they're going to have a independence referendum in their next election, which I think, let me check, Greenlandic election. I believe their next election is, yeah, it's this year. It's no later than the 6th of April. And their prime minister Muta Egede said that work has already begun on creating the framework for Greenlandic independence, and apparently hinted that an independence referendum could take place in April in tandem with the election.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. If Greenland becomes independent, there's no reason a country of 60,000 people should exist. The 101st Airborne should be over their skies before they even have a chance to celebrate their Independence Day. There, I said it.
Come on.
What? I'm just saying we need to secure that asset before China moves in there with its Belt and Road Initiative. Or Russia tries to.
Yeah.
What's one more block of ice? I mean, we already had Alaska, and that ended up being a gold mine. Quite literally.
Yeah, but that's also not completely and utterly covered in ice.
True. Another reason to let global warming go on, then?
Come on. Oh, come.
No, I'm joking. But I would be curious to see what actually is all underneath that ice.
Yeah.
Some have said some of the largest uranium reserves on Earth could be under that ice. Which, if that is true, that is yet another reason why we don't want the Russians or Chinese getting anywhere near Greenland.
Exactly, yeah.
There seems to be a gentleman in the crowd who wants to come up.
No idea who this guy is.
He seems to be new.
Well, he's not friends with a certain person, so I don't know. If you want to come up, dude, sure.
We'll go ahead and allow you up, Mr. General Max. Hello, sir.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, I cannot stay for long.
Well, go ahead and introduce yourself first and then make the comment you wanted to make.
Well, yes, I am the vice president of the Youth of Greek Royalists. Um, and basically, it makes sense for Trump to win Greenland because it will give him a strategic point over China and Russia, and also it will be very profitable because unlike Denmark and the state of Greenland, America has the proper equipment to extract oil and metal from the surface of the Greenland.
Now, I've never really understood this idea of Europe not having the resources to extract these resources because Norway is one of the biggest oil and gas producers in the North Sea region, and if Norway can do it, I don't see why Denmark
No,
can't.
it's not about that. It's not about that. Uh, nor it's how do I explain this? I'm sorry, I don't have the proper word.
Is it a matter with capital? Are there not enough
No,
investors?
it's a matter of international trading because if we import as Europe oil and metal from Greenland, which is imagine my father is a captain, by the way, just for clearance. Imagine hiring all those ships to the hyper-Atlantic shipment from one point to another. That's gonna cost too many because you need the companies to do it, to extract it and then transport it.
So the issue is logistical then.
Yes, yes, exactly. But if America does it and then transports it to Europe through the already functioning trade routes, then it will be a lot cheaper.
I understand now. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I cannot stay for long because it's 5 p.m. here.
Alright, that's quite alright. I'll just put you back down in the audience. Thank you for that. Anywho, that is an interesting perspective. I hadn't thought about the fact that the US has the trade infrastructure to facilitate it, not just the drilling infrastructure.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
Although I would think it weird that Denmark wouldn't have a large maritime fleet given its traditional role as a maritime power.
Yeah, I mean, you never really know because sometimes just because it has historically a good one does not mean it will, um,
Remain that
yeah,
way.
yeah.
Yeah. But it is interesting to think that there wouldn't be at least a couple companies in the North Sea that could facilitate it, but I'm not into shipping, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So yes, Greenland remains a strategic asset, but I just think that if we were to acquire it, we should not acquire it at the expense of alienating our European allies.
Yeah.
That seems to be something Trump has not been very delicate about.
Yeah.
But then again, that he has a reputation for not being a delicate person, so what do we expect,
He
right?
really doesn't care. He's like, I don't really care. I'm just gonna say what I want, and you have to deal with it.
Someone pointed out that this is one of his famous 4D chess moves, blah 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 blah. Something about what he wrote in the Art of the Deal about presenting outrageous demands as legitimate demands, so instead you haggle down to what you actually wanted in the first place. Something along
Yeah.
that line. But I don't see that working in geopolitics. Maybe in business, but not in geopolitics. International politics is too sanctimonious.
Yeah.
Diplomats are too wishy-washy.
Could you imagine a world without diplomats? Everyone's happily dancing, just.
Yeah, the diplomat got to send out that formal declaration of war, otherwise you get the no casus belli penalty.
Yeah. -1 stability.
-1 stability, +2 war exhaustion.
Yeah.
Yes, dear audience, we are using paradox game mechanics to describe real-world politics. And what are you going to do about it? As if you all didn't probably know that, yes, we played a funny map game.
A lot of people play the funny map game.
The funny map games are surprisingly satisfying.
Yeah, that's why it's the funny map game.
But which funny map game is best?
We're not going to get into that. We don't need heads rolling.
Yeah, that might start a fight. But I'm
But
curious.
hey, engagement bait.
Yeah. I am curious what your favorite is.
I don't know, honestly. If we're talking about just how many hours, I actually, I mean just hours. I mean, I like Vicky too.
Vicky 2 is fun. I like Vicky 2 because it's faster paced than most Paradox games. Like when I play Vicky 2, I feel like I can actually play a whole game of Vicky 2 in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, I've actually been able to play. I played literally a whole game of Vicky 2 within the span of, I think it was basically literally I had literally nothing to do that day, so I literally woke up, started playing Vicky 2, then didn't stop till I went to bed. Yeah, I was so bored.
I before with EU4, I've gotten up, started playing EU4 at 9 in the morning, and I didn't stop till 2 in the morning the next day. That I would not suggest doing that, but it was a day well spent. Now, my personal favorite is EU4 because I think it's complicated enough that it's challenging, but it's also simplistic enough that it's fun to play and entertaining.
Yeah.
And as much as I love sci-fi and I love Stellaris, I'm sorry the game gets boring after a while because it's basically the same game every time you play
You
it.
know, I bought that game years ago. I've still yet to play it even once.
You gotta play it at least once.
I've
It's
yet to play it
fun.
even. I've yet to play it even a single time. I've yet to even download it. But I
It,
bought it. I bought it years ago. I never downloaded it. Never played it.
it's fun.
I kind of just keep forgetting that it's in my library. You know, I don't really look at it too much. So I kind of forget it's sitting in there.
It's fun. The problem is there's only so many ways you can play it. Like there isn't. It's not like the other Paradox games where there's sort of a strategy or a role play element that it tries to create that with the different ethics and trying to create different values for your empire, but fundamentally what you end up doing is blobbing.
Yeah.
It's unavoidable what you end up doing is blobbing because there's literally nothing else to do in the game except blob.
Yeah.
I've got nothing else to talk about,
I know.
honestly.
I think that's about it. I think we can
Yeah, I think
wrap it up.
yeah.
I know.
Well,
We spent so much time of literally me just reading through that thing that we're almost at 45 minutes.
well then, hopefully we'll see many of you at the March for Life. And next week we'll give a recap of the March for Life, and hopefully we'll have some fun footage to go with that recap.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, we'll finally have an episode of Monarchist Minute with actual video.
Interesting, indeed.
Most certainly.
Until then, though, please join us in prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you
In
for
the name of the
joining us
Father, and of the Son, and of
again.
the Holy Ghost. Amen.
Thank you for joining us again on Monarchist Minute. We hope to see you next time, same place. Like, comment, subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to this on Spotify or any of our other platforms, hit follow or subscribe or whatever they call it on that specific platform to make sure you get updates. Like and follow us on social media. And if you want to help out with the cause or get more involved, join us on Discord and or send us an email. Until then,
Or contact us on Twitter. Like, I think can you do that?
yeah, you can do that. You can
Yeah,
send
or do that. Yeah, or X.
You can send us a message on Instagram too. We answer those
Yeah.
as well. Until then, may God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you, and good night.